You left your sandwich on the counter for 10 seconds, just long enough to grab a napkin. When you turned back, it was gone. No noise, no evidence. Just your dog across the room, chewing like nothing in the world had happened. Or maybe it wasn't food. Maybe it was your pillow, ripped open, stuffing scattered across the floor like a crime scene. Or something quieter, your worn t-shirt disappearing from the chair only to reappear later in your dog's bed. Untouched, just held close. Most people assume these are all the same behavior. Bad behavior, stealing, disobedience. But here's the problem. They're not the same thing at all. The dog that gently carries your shirt, the one that destroys your pillow, and the one that waits for the exact moment you look away to take your food, are each running completely different psychological programs. And behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. Because when researchers actually put dogs into brain scanners and test these exact moments under controlled conditions, what they found doesn't just explain why your dog steals. It completely rewrites what that behavior means. It's the quiet kind of stealing people misunderstand the most. Your dog doesn't chew the shirt, doesn't tear it apart. It carries it somewhere soft, circles once, and lies down on it like it just found something it's been looking for. Most people think this is attachment, maybe even mild separation anxiety. But here's what the data shows. In 2015, neuroscientist Gregory Burns and his team at Emory University placed dogs inside an fMRI scanner and exposed them to different scents. Their own, other dogs, strangers, and their owner. The strongest brain activation didn't come from food. It came from you. Specifically, the caudate nucleus, the same reward center that lights up when your dog anticipates something good. Which means that worn t-shirt in its bed isn't clothing. Neurologically, it's you. A concentrated, a deportable version of the person its brain is wired to seek for safety and reward. So that dog didn't steal your shirt. It went looking for the strongest comfort signal it could find. And it found you. Then there's the kind of stealing that comes with eye contact. Your dog picks up the remote, freezes, and looks straight at you. Not running, not hiding, waiting. Because what it's really watching is you. Most people think the dog wants the object. But here's what's actually happening. The last time it did this, you reacted. You stood up, said its name in that tone, maybe even chased it across the room. From your dog's perspective, that was incredible. Full attention, movement, engagement. That's the reward. This is operant conditioning, but with a twist. Because you don't react the same way every time. Sometimes you chase, sometimes you laugh, sometimes you trade. That inconsistency creates what psychologists call a variable reinforcement schedule. The same mechanism behind slot machines. And that's what makes this behavior so addictive. So your dog didn't steal the remote. It started a game and made you the main character. Then there's a third kind of stealing that has nothing to do with you at all. Your dog walks through the house carrying your shoe, slow, proud, almost ceremonial, not playing, not hiding, just holding it. Most people think this is random, but it isn't. Every dog is born with something ethologists call a predatory motor sequence, an ancient behavioral chain. Orient, chase, grab, carry. And here's where it gets interesting. Not all dogs run the full sequence. Retrievers were selectively bred to grab and carry, softly, persistently, without destroying. So when your dog picks up your shoe and walks away like it just completed a mission, that's not misbehavior. That's 15,000 years of genetic programming, quietly running in your living room. And then there's the kind of stealing that feels almost calculated. Your dog waits, not for the food, but for you to look away. You turn your back for a second, and that's when it moves. Most people assume this is impulse. Lack of training, no self-control. But here's what researchers found. In 2013, scientists at the Max Planck Institute ran a simple experiment. Food was placed in a room. Dogs were told not to take it. Then the lighting changed. When the room was dark, dogs took the food far more often. But here's the detail that changes everything. It wasn't about whether the dog could see the food. It was about whether you could see the dog. In other experiments, dogs chose angles where the human's view was blocked, which means your dog isn't just reacting. It's modeling your perspective. So that sneaky moment in your kitchen? That's not disobedience, that's strategy. But here's where most people completely misread the situation. A destroyed pillow and a stolen shirt look similar on the surface. They're not even close. The dog that gently carries your shirt and curls up on it is in a low arousal state, calm, regulated, seeking comfort. The dog that turns your pillow into confetti? That's high arousal, different brain, different chemistry, different need. Destructive behavior like that is almost always linked to something underneath. understimulation, frustration, or anxiety building with nowhere to go. And here's the mistake people make. They respond to both dogs the same way: punishment, scolding, taking the object away. But those two dogs don't need the same correction. One needs comfort, the other needs an outlet. So that bad behavior you're reacting to, it's not one problem. It's two completely different nervous systems, asking for two completely different things. And there's one more layer underneath all of this that makes the problem even harder to fix. Your dog isn't choosing your stuff because it's better. It's choosing it because it's newer. In one study, when dogs were given a choice between familiar objects and novel ones, they picked the new item over 70% of the time, not slightly more, overwhelmingly more. Novelty, to a dog's brain, is inherently rewarding. It triggers exploration, curiosity, dopamine, which means your shoe isn't competing with your dog's toys. It's competing with boredom, and boredom almost always wins. So when your dog ignores a pile of perfectly good toys and goes straight for something you just touched, that's not preference, that's stimulation, which is why punishment rarely works here. Because you're not removing the motivation. You're just removing the object and leaving the need behind. And if your dog is young, this behavior can feel almost relentless, like nothing is working, like it suddenly forgot everything it ever learned. But here's what the research shows. Between 6 months and 2 years, dogs enter a developmental phase that looks a lot like human adolescence. At around 8 months, they become less responsive, more impulsive, more likely to test boundaries, not because training failed, because their brain is changing. Impulse control is still developing. Exploration is peaking, and at around 12 months, problem behaviors hit their highest point, which means that phase where your dog steals everything, ignores commands, and pushes limits. That's not regression, that's development, and in most cases, it passes. And here's the part that makes this worse without you realizing it. Your instinct is to chase, to grab the object, pull it away, end the problem quickly. But from your dog's perspective, that changes everything. Because now, having something means conflict is coming, so it holds tighter, runs faster, guards harder. Over time, the behavior doesn't disappear, it escalates. But when dogs are taught to trade, giving something up leads to something better. The pattern reverses. They stop protecting. They start cooperating. So that frantic chase across your living room, it's not solving the problem. It's teaching your dog exactly what to do next time. But there is a line where this stops being normal, and recognizing it matters. If your dog is just carrying, chewing, or playing, that's behavior. But if it's swallowing what it takes, fabric, plastic, wood, that's different. When the behavior becomes repetitive, harder to interrupt, or starts getting worse over time, that's no longer curiosity. That's a signal. Because in most cases, compulsive ingestion is linked to anxiety, impulsivity, or underlying stress. But sometimes it's something else entirely. Chronic gastrointestinal issues can drive the exact same behavior from the inside out. So if you're seeing vomiting, weight loss, or unusual fatigue alongside it, that's not a training problem. That's a medical one. So the next time your dog steals something, pause. Because that moment isn't as simple as it looks. That shirt in its bed? That's not theft. That's your dog reaching for the closest version of you it can hold on to. That remote in its mouth? That's not defiance. That's an invitation to play, to engage, to pull you into its world. That food taken the second you look away? That's not disobedience. That's a mind calculating, adapting, paying attention. What looks like one bad habit is actually a collection of completely different systems: emotion, learning, instinct, intelligence, all overlapping in one small behavior. That's not chaos, that's design. So the next time your dog takes something, look closer, because that's not a bad dog. That's a brain working exactly the way it was built to. If this changed how you see your dog, watch, subscribe, and leave a comment below. What's the weirdest thing your dog has ever stolen? And next time, we're breaking down a behavior that's even stranger than this.